Hello, Dad. This is Jay Warren. This is the Dadhood Journey podcast, and today's topic is this. The kids don't do that with me. All right, let's do it.
Hi, my name's Nico, and you're listening to my dad, Jay Warren. This is the Dadhood Journey podcast. Thanks for listening. Pretty good. Now can we listen to it?
Yep. So, Dad, this is a topic I've been wanting to do on this podcast for a while. I had it written down as something to explore in a topic because it comes up in parenting all the time. I see it in my life. I see it all the time with the parents that come in. I hear it from my friends, whether I'm talking to the dads, whether I'm talking to the moms, and that is that the kids behave differently depending on who they're with. And part of that is like perfectly natural. In a lot of ways, all kids, as well as us humans, and adults as well, we adapt to the environment we're in. So the environment as a kid in the house when mama's around and in charge is different than when dad is around and dad's in charge. And let's face it, the environment in the house when both mom and dad are around and in charge is different as well. So there's 3 different environments. Each one of your kids, if you have 1, 2, 3, each one of those is adapting in different ways. So there's a lot of dynamics going on. But what I'm going to talk about specifically today is when just mom's around, just dad's around. And this is going to be from my experience. Again, I said this topic has been on my list of things to address for a long time. It's up in spades in my life right now because, as you know, like a couple weeks ago, started the 2 household lifestyle as far as our family is concerned. And Nico's having a lot of challenges in changing both ways. I don't want to say a lot of challenges. I mean, he's having challenges kind of from what we're talking with the people we consult with to help guide us through this process. He's doing really well compared to how it could go and apparently what they've seen with other families go through that. So that's a blessing. That's good. I'm happy about that for him and for us, but it's still a big challenge. And what's coming up for us as a family and what we're seeing with Nico in this really heightened, exaggerated sense with 2 houses, literally different 4 walls, different roofs, is very typical for a lot of parents going through that. And I'm going to speak kind of big picture sense, kind of stereotypical in that, you know, dad has a longer leash, mom has a shorter leash. And that's not 100% true for all families. I get that. I'm just going to speak from my experience. One, in that's absolutely true for my family. And it's true for a lot of dads that I talk to. In that, so when kids with dad, they're... Well, I'm just going to say, so when Nico's with me, I allow him to explore a lot more. That means exploring in distance, just away from me. Like if there's hiking trails really close to my new place and we've gone for walks there. And I mean, he's not out of eyesight, but he's way further away than he's typically allowed when he's with his mom. And so I'm allowing him to explore stuff. He's picking up things. He's doing things on that trail that he definitely wouldn't be able to do with mom around. And in the house, there are things that I allow him to do with my guidance. I'm looking over him. Like, perfect example is where we're doing all kinds of like Christmas crafting and stuff like that for the house. And the use of scissors, you know, like he's got some kid scissors, rounded tips. They're sharp. Don't get me wrong, but he's learning on like, this is how you carry them, like face tip down. And he's learning that in his class. He's learning that from all of us. But there are things that I let him do on his own without me having my hand on his hands that are different than when he's with his mom. So he's used to a degree of freedom that he's not able to experience when he's at his mom's house. And so it's happening is there's a lot more acting out going on when he's at his mom's. And this has always been the case, even when we were living in the same house, in that she has a lot more rules, a lot more restraints, a lot more no, you can't do that type of thing. And that just breeds with a kid that wants freedom and wants to do things on their own, confrontation. And it's not that I don't want to deal with confrontation, although I would say in general that's not my strong suit in life. I like avoiding conflict if I can, and sometimes that's good in that I can be tactful and I can be diplomatic and avoid a situation, and sometimes I'll be perfectly candid. I just lay down and let things go that I shouldn't because I'm so fearful of confrontation. But I would say, and this is me, I get my version of things. I would say that in my version of things with parenting Nico, that I trust him a lot and I give him a safe, long leash to allow him to do things. And when it gets pulled back in abruptly, it causes a lot of acting out, talking back, what do you call it? Like meltdowns, I guess you call them, tantrums and things like that. And so there's an abrupt change. Now, she and I need to figure out how to make it not so abrupt to change so that he doesn't have this back and forth. Okay, like at 5 years old, it's just harder to navigate of like, which house am I in and what am I allowed to do? It just doesn't have the frontal cortex to handle that bandwidth, right? So that may mean I need to shorten my leash and not allow him to do as much. I would love for it to be that she opens up and trusts him more and gives him a longer leash because I think he deserves it. But that's something that we as parents need to figure out for ourselves, what works for us and what works for Nico so that he's happier. Now, for you dads, are you finding that's true as well? That there's things that you would let slide that their mom doesn't, other things that you don't let slide that mom does, and that causes a problem? There's definitely lines in the sand that I draw that his mom doesn't, and she's definitely spoken to me about that times about like, I don't get like why you're making this into such a big deal. And my counter to that is like, we all pick our own things, like you've got tons of things that you draw a line in the sand and that just seems so dumb to me and so a waste of time and energy, that just causes a conflict, and that's the job as parents to have, I don't want to say like you have to be the same because it's never going to be the same. Dads are different than moms. Every parent is different in their ways. All dads are different. All moms are different. And your kids are, as they get older, are learning that, and I keep using the example, like even as a kid going to my best friend's house, I had two best friends growing up. I knew there were like house rules, that there were things that when I was at one friend's house, their parents allowed and were okay with, and there were things that they weren't, and it was different than in my house, and the same is true for the other best friend, and so you adapted. It was kind of like, well, this is at their house, we can't do this, but we can do this, and we adapted to it, and I definitely knew that growing up. There were things with my mom that were different than with my dad. So in this heightened sense, though, of drop-offs and pickups and nights in my house, days at my house versus there, it's really amping up, and it's been a challenge, and even more challenging for the situation. I don't know if more challenging is right. Anyway, regardless, the situation is he's acting out and having a lot harder time with his mom at her house than here. When he's with me, things go great. He's having a good time. He's sleeping well. There's been like timeouts or anything like that. I mean, I'm reining him in because, he does things like that. But when he's been going to his mom's, it's a lot harder. And that's something we as parents need to help Nico with. Like the things he's saying to her, like it just aren't okay. There's no way that it's okay to say that to anybody, but he's acting out, and we need to get get down to the nitty-gritty of it so he can be happier in both places, as well as all of us just better off. So that's my current situation. But as far as this, like, he doesn't do that with me. Like, there's tons of instances where incongruencies, that implies that you're supposed to be, where there's differences in your parenting style comes up, and it makes for strife in the house. So figuring out what those are and being okay with them and or modifying them so that there's more congruency can be really helpful. As your kids get older, it's easier. My kiddo's 5. He's definitely not at a point where he recognizes, okay, he goes into like, oh, I'm at dad's house, like this is how it is, and oh, I'm at mom's house, this is how it is. I've heard from families that have older kids that as they're older, it's a lot easier. But for now, if your younger kids are that way, know that that's a challenge, and you working with your mate, getting on board with that to have it be less of a stark difference can be really, really helpful. All right, so I'm sure I'm going to be talking more about this, not necessarily like in what's going on in my personal life with that, but as far as that issue of what's okay with dad, what's not okay with mom, those kind of things, as they come up. So share with me like what situations that are. If you've got like brand new kiddos, you're not going to see it nearly as much as when you've got a kid that realizes they get yes sometimes and no's at a different time. But until then, we just keep the discussion alive. Support other dads in the group if they're having challenges, and put your 2 cents in, because it's worth way more than 2 cents. So until the next time, guys, take good care of yourself, take good care of your families, and we'll connect on the next episode.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. You can hang out with other dads in our Facebook group. Just go to Facebook, search for the Dadhood Journey, and apply to get in. See you there, and see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Perfect.
There you go, Dan.